come listen to the story of a man named Bragg. This tar-heeled boy, a little sick in the head, gave out orders that no one understood, but he never was fired like folks said he should. Bragg, that is, Rebel General Braxton Bragg. Well, despite my melodic voice, I hope you all figured out that was the Beverly Hillbillies tune, but with my lyrics. And it's stuck in your head now, like it is in mine. But now this is a story that proves that fiction is one thing, but the truth is nuts. You're going to have a tough time believing it, but the source of this story is impeccable. None other than America's 18th president himself, and we all know that presidents never lie. Well, howdy again, folks. Rick from the Boondocking Bears. Well, without argument, one of the squirreliest characters of the American Civil War was Confederate General Braxton Bragg, a career soldier from North Carolina, a nutcase, a kook, and a favorite of rebel President Jefferson Davis. Luckily for Mr. Bragg. Now, Bragg was a character, to put it kindly, a man who, as a lieutenant in the pre-war army, had the cajones, or stupidity, to publicly call out and criticize none other than the commanding general of the entire United States Army, Winfield Scott. And but for Scott's magnanimity, this story would not be told. So, who is this nut, and what did he do? Well, Braxton Bragg was a Southern commander virtually despised by his entire officer corps and the men under him alike. Now, there can be no question the American Civil War had its fair share of colorful characters. The Lothario, General Joe Hooker, with his gaggle of ladies of questionable repute in his camp wherever he traveled. George Custer, the relentless self-promoter, always putting himself first, often to the detriment of his men and the army as a whole. And the tenacious Southern cavalryman, Nathan Bedford Forrest, later founder of the Ku Klux Klan, known for his wartime zealotry to kill the Northern boys. Not to mention the hypochondriac Stonewall Jackson, swashbuckling Jeb Stuart, and the prickly Dan Sickles, who introduced the temporary insanity defense into American jurisprudence after killing his wife's lover in public. And it worked. So all these gentlemen are entertaining legends of the war, but none can top the irascible, defiant, and oft-described obnoxious Confederate General Braxton Bragg, who, for some ungodly reason, the United States Army named a post after, Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Go figure. So Braxton Bragg was renowned throughout the Army before the war and during it, when commanding Southern forces, for arguing with anyone at any time about anything. So how did such a man rise to command an army in the Civil War? Well, fate and fortune played a large part in Bragg's career, fortunately for him, though arguably catastrophically for the fledgling Confederate nation. During the Mexican War of 1848, Bragg served with and saved future Confederate President Jefferson Davis's life. And we all know saving a future president's life is always a good thing if you want to advance in the military. Well, Davis never forgot and subsequently protected Bragg's career from then on. But by the middle of the Civil War, despite countless advisors telling him to sack Bragg, Davis never did. And oh, did the South pay for that misguided loyalty. So now, with that backdrop, let's get right to the crazier than a hoot owl department, because y'all are not going to believe this Bragg story. Now, Ulysses S. Grant tells this story in his post-presidency memoirs. He vouches for its veracity, claiming to have witnessed it himself. You see, Grant believed Bragg bordered on mental instability, which from a distinguished politician is a polite turn of phrase. However, had it been in vogue at the time, wacko might have been a better description. So the story goes that in the pre-war U.S. Army, Grant and Bragg were stationed together. Bragg then commanded a company, but also doubled as the company's quartermaster, responsible for issuing provisions to the troops. One day, as company commander, Bragg made a written request for provisions to the quartermaster himself. Now, receiving the request through military channels, as quartermaster, he then denied the request and wrote back his official reasoning. On receiving the denial from himself, remember, as company commander, he then wrote back to himself, arguing that he was justly entitled to what he had requested. Then stubbornly, as quartermaster, after receiving this second request, from himself, remember, he wrote back again and refused to provide the supplies, arguing against the need. Now, on receiving the second denial from himself, he was now infuriated at himself. So fearing fisticuffs might erupt with his quartermaster, he wrote his commanding officer to take action, if you can believe it, in an effort to defuse the situation before it came to blows with himself. Seriously, I'm not jacking you around. So reading Bragg's letter, the commanding officer was just incredulous. You can imagine what he must have been thinking. Calling Bragg in, he stood him at attention and said, "My God, Bragg, have you lost your mind? You have quarreled with every officer in the Army, and now you're bickering with yourself." Can you believe this? Bloody amazing, isn't it? But it's true. Unbelievably, this nut job would go on to command an entire army on behalf of the Southern Confederacy, earning the label as arguably the worst general of the war. No wonder the South lost. They never had a chance. So there you go, folks. Incredible. If it weren't true, you'd think I'd made it up. But take it on the word of an American president because, you know, those fellas have impeccable virtue and integrity. So enjoy, smile, be charitable, and if I was an Amazon affiliate, I'd give orders to resupply from here. But I'm not, so requisition your provisions as you see fit. And talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.